So I think that's a really important way of, I think, first establishing what your early memories were. And as you said, the beginning of the Second World War was a kind of break with an end of a certain chapter, exactly. Yes. And then you went to move in with your uncle. Yes. But what was your experience of Ghana under British colonial occupation? What was your sort of memory of that time?
The memory was quite nice because we didn't know any better as children. And as long as we got our food, you know, and we got our clothing, somewhere to live, we were all right. Even right up to the beginning of the struggle for independence, youth or children were quite content. They were not interested in politics or, you know, fighting for independence. Because I didn't have to join in a group or discuss the question of, you know, rule outside of the British government. We thought everything from Britain was number one. We were quite happy even to go and fight their wars for them. Honestly, otherwise they won't come to schools to solicit for volunteers, which they did when I was in school. Only I was not 16 at the time, or about 16, and I couldn't volunteer to go. But some older students went to the war, and nobody thought anything about it. We were all very happy, you know, and Britain or London or England is a motherlands, you know, in quotation. They would like to go to England. Everything that came from England was number one. As far as the youth and children of my age were concerned, nobody bothered about, you know, a different life from what we were living.
And at which point did your understanding of Britain's colonial occupation change?
It was Nkrumah who even brought that. Even though Dankwa and there were some, you know, people fighting for independence or self-rule and so on, by the time that I was teaching, by the time that I was not even when I was teaching, when I was a photographic apprentice, so from 46, 7, and 8, thereabout, it was the high-ups, you know, politicians and lawyers and big people of some sort. Honestly, I didn't even care a hoot, or I didn't, you know, think I would be involved, till Nkrumah came. And this idea of self-government now and not in the near possible future, he knew how to publicize and target the youth. Nkrumah, I think he did his homework overseas and knew how to do it. That's everybody got to know about Nkrumah and what he wanted.
What was your first memory of Nkrumah?
I think I hadn't seen him personally. I think I've seen him in pictures or something. But when he broke off from the Dankwa group that invited him, you know, and formed his own CPP, you know, that was when my mind came to him, and you know, I started listening or following, you know. And somehow, I think somehow in the struggle, after the struggle, it touched everybody, especially when Ni Kwabena Bonny brought out the idea of boycotting European goods. I don't know if you know of it. You know, we don't buy anything from outside. How much we produce ourselves then was another matter. But the idea was, you know, if we don't buy, then, we can fight for independence and so on. And he went around the whole country, making propaganda or telling people about this. It's amazing how he has been left out of the picture. But he, on his own, went round. And I knew him personally. We lived next door to him. So I knew him. I played with the children. And so that's part of the time. And during the struggle, we call it struggle, and because we had to do the boycott, it means everybody, it touched children. If you don't get sugar, this is the reason why. Everybody had to suffer or tighten one's belt or feel that there is something going on.
And did becoming a photographer, well actually, let's go...
That's a long time before, yes.
Yeah. Then let's go to the role that photography played in your family. So before you were even born, photography was already very much a part of your family. But can you tell me how?
I think now that I come to think of it, I haven't come across anybody who had so many photographers in his family as me. I started with, I knew my mother's brother. My mother's senior brother was a photographer. That's the one I knew. And I think his brother too double. He was a teacher, but he also had a camera and he used to take photographs. But we had another uncle from Osu, Christiansburg. They were cousins. And he used to come to our house in Accra, but he was also a professional photographer. And then Mr. J.P.D. Dodu, who was a cousin, he was practicing as a photographer. So I had, my uncle who was a photographer, my two uncles, and then J.P.D. Dodu, who was also, and I used to be sent to J.P.D. Dodu many times because he was local. Somehow, my uncle, my brothers, my mother's brother retired before I left school. So, I didn't have anything to do with his photography. And I didn't even intend to go and understudy him. But I think somehow when I was in school or leaving school, I must have mentioned that I wanted to go to my cousin, J.P. to learn photography. One thing was that I wouldn't pay apprentice fee. I wouldn't pay any fees to learn. When I was in school, I was slightly strict in my things, something like a disciplinarian. And my friends said, when I finish, I should be a policeman, something like, I was like a policeman. So when I thought of photography, there was a local policeman who was a photographer, and whenever there was an accident, he would come and display, stop the traffic and walk, do this, take a picture here, do this. And I thought, that's a nice thing to do. And I thought about it. I'm not sure whether I pursued it. But when I left school finally, I had to do teaching in our infant school. And having excelled in basket weaving and cloth weaving, more or less art and crafts, having excelled while I was at school because I lived with a teacher in the same house. So we worked at home and also at school. So much so that sometimes I went with him to the various schools